So President Trump has won. And before that even happened, there was a really interesting report released by the Oversight Committee in the Congress about Lina Khan. Now, it was interesting because I got to ask Greg about this because they actually said Lina Khan's term is over. And now, with the presidential change happening, I highly doubt there's any chance of her being reappointed. So maybe it's a moot point. But this report was interesting because it specifically spoke to and accused Lina Khan of overreach, of suppressing due process, which Greg and I have talked about on this podcast about how ridiculous it is where if you get attacked by the FTC, if they freeze your assets, you're guilty before proven innocent and you don't even have money to defend yourself. So really interesting topic to get deeper into. I've not read the report. I've been waiting for this moment because I know Greg would have, just to get his perspective on it. But I want to address one thing before we get started. There was a comment that was made by one of our listeners today that I want to address very clearly. They said, hey, I'm glad that Trump won because now we won't have to worry about the FTC for the next 4 years. And let me just be very clear. We covered this. We did an entire episode, if you look at this episode list, where we said what happens to the FTC if Trump wins. And what we said was the following. At the micro level, advertising compliance, all of the rules around, telesales and Section 19 and 13B and their administration and implementation of it, none of that gets impacted. That's pretty much stays as is. Trump was already president. Let's not forget, for 4 years. The FTC was hyperactive during that time. They collected $1.5 billion in a 3-year window during that time as well. So it doesn't affect anything. Now, I do believe, and we talked about this, some of the higher level things, like, for example, how Lina Khan has completely ended the practice of M&A, her approach to big tech regulation, all of that, maybe that's going to get impacted. But for us little guys, us marketers or small businesses, I'm sorry to tell you, we still have to follow the rules that are talked about in this book. So with that said, welcome back to the podcast, our very own Mr. Compliance Attorney himself. They say when he lands in D.C., Lina Khan now gets scared and shivers. Just joking, guys.
Any FTC attorneys watching this, I do not endorse that statement. So, because I do talk to you guys, and that's not the case. Um,
Sorry, I'm making that stuff up, guys. I'm trying to be funny. Please don't get mad at Greg or me. Greg, what did the report say? I'm curious because I haven't read it.
Let me go back to your last comment about the change in administration real quick. The thing is, remember, it was not just 2 months ago that the FTC voted 5-0. That's 3 Democratic commissioners, 2 Republican commissioners unanimously voted to enhance the testimonial requirements, to reinforce them about the standards of how you use and collect testimonials. There are elements of it. It for sure, Chair Khan will not be the chair once Trump is inaugurated. It's an appointment by the President of the United States. She's a Biden appointment. She's not going to be reappointed. It'll be a Republican in that position. So just know that a couple of things to consider on this. Number one is that the rules of the FTC Act and what the requirements and abiding in Section 19 and the things that you have to do with telemarketing, those all stay in place. We know that those are going to stay in place. There's going to be more enforcement. But what this Oversight Committee report says is that Chair Khan was heavily influenced by the Biden administration. I don't believe when Trump was president that there was any report that he heavily influenced the FTC. I think he took a very hands-off approach. But if Chair Khan is gone, just remember the associate directors that are over the different divisions of the FTC, they're probably going to retain their positions and be the same people. And these are the individuals who have brought a lot of these litigation cases over the last 10 to 15 years. So a lot of cases within our industry and about the marketing and direct selling and information, businesses, those are going to be the same rules that apply. But it is telling that for the last, at least since this report, so in June of 2023, the Oversight Commission, the Committee for Oversight, the U.S. Congress, and Accountability started to do an investigation on Chair Khan. And they conducted several interviews with top commission officials and requested documents to come up with respond to some concerns that Chair Khan was pushing the Biden administration, their pro agenda on a lot of things. And we know from what Mark Zuckerberg said about the influence they had during COVID and about the communications that they could say and pushing down on Facebook on what they could and what they, trying to take some of the communications and the speech and pushing it down, that continued through the commission that she went through. And so the oversight report, which came out about 6 weeks ago, so well before the election was finalized, came out and said that there was significant evidence to show, and I'll read what the report said, that the FTC is supposed to adhere to an independent role, but the investigation by the Oversight and Accountability Commission found that Chair Lina Khan abused her power and bent the knee to the Biden and Harris White House. During her tenure, Chair Khan abandoned agency norms, disregarded ethical standards, subverted due process rights by colluding with foreign regulatory regimes, and willingly became a political tool for the Harris administration to carry out its ideological goals. It is clear that Chair Khan will stop at nothing to accomplish its radical left desired ends. Its conduct is allowed to continue and will further undermine Americans' confidence in the FTC's role in protecting Americans' consumers in the U.S. marketplace. Chair's term is expired last month, and she should not be permitted to continue in leading an independent agency. So, and this was from Chairman James Cromer, who's he's a Republican from the state of Kentucky that was the chair of the Oversight and Accountability Commission for the U.S. Congress. So, yeah, I know you may say that this is, a politically motivated statement just weeks before the election, but in my experience, what I've seen over the last several years with the FTC has taken a brazen approach. Remember when they lost on AMG Capital Management, what did Chair Khan say? This is a bad day for our consumers of America. We're going to appeal to the Congress to amend Section 5. That never happened. So what have they done? I can tell you what they've done recently is that they've started to pivot, and they bring asset freezes under the business opportunity rule under Section 19. They're trying to pivot to do it. It's 5-0. We do say, hey, we're having this new regulatory rule about testimonials and everything else. So they're being aggressive as possible. The businesses that they're shutting down with asset freezes would have negotiated a settlement. Way different than what we even went through on with Learn. I mean, if they had, these businesses that had the asset freeze had the opportunity to do what you did, they probably would have settled too. And they were good candidates for settlement. But instead, I feel like there is a little bit of aggression. Now, does that mean that just because the Trump administration is going to appoint somebody else, that they're no longer asset freezes and stuff? No, they're going to use them, and they're bad actors that they should be using for them. I mean, there's a reason that those tools should be allowable. But it's interesting. If you go to the AMG Capital Management case, I remember watching the oral arguments in that case because I'm a nerd, and one of the Supreme Court justices, I don't know if it was Kavanaugh or I think it was, but was basically asking the FTC attorney, it's like, the FTC attorney made this statement like, well, this is a rare, we don't do this in a couple of cases. And Kavanaugh, I think, said, Justice Kavanaugh, I believe it was him, said, no, wait, counselor, isn't it like there's 100 actions right now at the FTC, and of those actions that, you've used this in like 92 of them? So how is this rare? This seems to be the standard norm. Going into getting full asset freezes against companies, it eliminates due process. I mean, there's not a lot you do when you get an asset freeze. What do I do? You sit down and you try to settle the best settlement you can because clients have money. Talk about the panic of not having any resources. Imagine if you couldn't pay for your bills, or you had kids, you couldn't pay for their food because you don't have any access to money. And you think that doesn't happen in America, but it happens with courts, with the Federal Trade Commission. And I think this report is telling, and it could be bipartisan. It could be, I don't know, it could be one-sided on this because it was Chair James Comer, who's a Republican, but this is a bipartisan committee. They did an investigation, and this is what they found. I mean, this is something that it just shows that they, when given the wrong opportunity, that these agencies can be manipulated to perform an agenda, where the
So,
purpose of the mission was not that originally.
in the committee, there would you said, I think you just said bipartisan committee. I mean, I know that it's written by the chairperson of the committee, who's a Republican, but that doesn't mean the whole committee is full of Republicans.
No, it's not. I mean, you can see it. So the chair is James Comer from Kentucky, but the ranking member is Jamie Raskin, who's in your state, in Maryland. And if I'm right, I think he's a Democrat. So yeah, these are bipartisan committees.
So to some degree, the rest of them would have had to have signed on. He couldn't have just solo written this thing
Oh,
and said,
no,
I'm
and
signing off
yeah,
on it.
the committee is representative of several. There are Democratic members.
Yeah.
There's Eleanor Norton, who's in D.C. There's Gerald Conley from Virginia. There's, you know, I can't. It's in your state too. It's Khaleesi Mufi. I don't.
Yeah.
Mufum. I don't know.
So
So
do you remember? I remember one very, very specific instance in which I felt the FTC did the bidding of the Biden campaign so openly and vividly that before I even really understood the stuff like I do now, having been around you for the last couple of years, even back then I was like, wait a minute, this looks shady. And so that was when Roe v. versus Wade, or I forgot however you say it. Like it got back to state level, right? Supreme Court said, hey, this is state level.
turn Roe v. Wade. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it was like, so basically states can ban abortion all of a sudden, and some states did start doing it. They started saying, hey, we don't allow. So all of a sudden, the next week or 2 weeks later, you see the FTC attacking certain companies that are marketing data platforms that can track where people are.
Right.
And so they attacked them for privacy violations, and they went after them pretty hard. But when you pulled that thread apart, a lot of people were saying, hey, these companies could be tagged by state AGs, and they could prove that a person had been in the vicinity or at a abortion clinic, and hence use that against people who got abortions illegally in a state. And so the Biden administration wanted to protect that. And I was like, God, is that really, that seems horrible. Like, imagine being those companies that have done really nothing wrong. They're out doing whatever they're doing. They're providing marketing data services, and now they just become victims of this massive thing. And that was a prevailing, non-debated, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think Biden even bragged about it. I think the Biden administration said, we are doing this as a response to this thing. Do you remember any of this? Am I remembering it correctly? Because that was probably the most obvious bidding work that I saw the FTC do.
I definitely think some of the actions they're bringing against like Facebook and Amazon and the regulatory actions even in our industry are motivated by some of that. I don't know if particular what you're saying is the gospel truth, like this is actually why they did it, but I remember what you're talking about, and tracking
Yeah.
software for abortions and where people are located. They're like, oh, this is a privacy issue. It's like, well, yeah, but
Yeah, it was there was a statement made by Biden, because I remember saying, well, I guess that's like, so there was a statement made by the Biden administration that said, as an example of how we are responding to this, look what we did. We've commissioned the FTC to go
right.
out after these companies. And so I think that's fairly factual and proof. But guys, I don't remember the exact dates and times and things, so someone Google it and you can check it. The other thing so I have a question. This is kind of unrelated to this, but you brought it up, so I'm curious, and I wonder if you, in the legal area, if you guys have ever discussed it. Most of these tech founders, right, up until recently, Mark Zuckerberg, I feel like this election he stayed a little bit out of it, but Elon Musk, I mean, he's flipped, but a lot of the other ones, actually, I guess they're all flipping now. So even Jeff Bezos now has recently made some changes. He's demanded the Washington Post make some changes. But for the longest time, they were considered strong Democratic, sponsors, endorsers, funders. but yet it's the same party that turned around and is trying to butcher them. It's attacking them left, right, and front and back with all of their different agencies. I don't get it. Is that just a good old case of biting the hand that fed you, or is there
Partly.
something below the fold I'm missing there? Does that make sense? Like, these are the people that put them there, and then they turn right back around and attack the crap out of them. What do they think is going to happen?
I don't know. I mean, that's, I mean, I mean, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Meta, they've been heavily attacked by the federal government over the last few years. Some of it's justifiable, right? I mean, targeting children,
Oh, 100%.
and the way that they do that and the social media detriments. I mean, I think all of those things are things that should be
So
addressed.
I continue to, and I say this all the time, Greg, when you're not around and I'm on webinars and teaching people, I continue to tell people, I know it's going to sound crazy, but I'm actually still on the sidelines rooting on the FTC. Like, I don't have any ill will. I think I always look at myself, at least this is what I've convinced myself, is that I was collateral damage. I don't think I deserved what I got, but at the same time, when rules are, one apple spoils a lot. And so I got the rules of the rules and got the horns because the horns need to be there to protect from other people, but still support what they do and a lot of what they do. So Greg, what is the fallout of this report? I mean, it went around, a lot of people wrote it off as a hit piece for political gain. It did make its way, though. I mean, I saw it being retweeted, and I had people send it to me for obvious reasons, I think. But
I think
do
I
you
said,
think you sent it to me? I had other people send it to me as well because, obviously we're out here talking about it, so I think people are sending it to me. But do you
tactical.
think the next incoming person looks at that? Perhaps there's changes. Does the Oversight Committee have any other capability, or do they just issue that report, or do they then hold the FTC do they say come in and tell us how you're making changes, or they just make the report and say, hey, we think things are not right, now we'll move on?
The way I read it is that the established members of the commission, the associate directors, the people that have been there, the attorneys that have been there for a long time, they had concerns about some of the way that they were directed as well from the interviews. So I think what's the ramifications of this? In January, we're going to have a new chair that's going to be appointed by Trump, and if Trump does anything, in the future, if Trump does anything in the future, I don't. He did what he did 4 years ago. He's not going to get involved with the FTC. Remember, right when Trump was entering in as president for his first term, what happened? He settled Trump University with the FTC. And then once he was in there, people were like, oh, Trump's going to get in here and he's going to blow the FTC up and do this. And he didn't. He just let the commission do what they did. He didn't use it as a tool or mechanism to go after, the funny thing about this, and if you step back and look at the first Trump presidency, I know he says like the craziest things, but normally he didn't really go in and implement a lot of like dramatic changes to some of these, organizations. I don't think that he's going to get in and change what the commission's doing. I think you're going to see, at least in our space and marketing and telemarketing, that they're going to come in and get asset freezes against people doing automated businesses. They're going to argue telemarketing violations. They're going to say that there are violations of Section 5 and Section 19 of the FTC Act. I think you're going to see the same. I don't think you're going to see much there. And so the ramifications of a report like this are going to be, it sounds entertaining right now. It's horrible that that the Biden-Harris administration used this as a tool for their bidding. But the hope is that we can go past that as a country and say, like, listen, we can't have this anymore. Censorship, using things for political motivation. I mean, I could get on my soapbox about litigation and using the justice system as a political means. I mean, I think that craziness has to stop. And then we need to move forward and just do things where people have the ability to say, have a free speech to say stuff. And now that she's going to be out of this position, my guess is the next person appointed to that is going to come in and not have an agenda to push. And if they do, if they're Republican, then they should have the same dang report come against them. They should not be pushing agendas. They should be doing it as according to what the commission is set up and established for, to make good trade, to get rid of antitrust issues, fair competition, and then have good, decent marketing practices.
Well, Greg, I think this is as good of a time for me to let the cat out of the bag. The next chair that he's tapped is me. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
How cool
yeah.
would that be? I would love to walk into the building and be like, your new boss is here. Now, I will make things explode in here, so let's go. I'm curious to see who he taps to be the next chair. Nothing
Well,
against...
Smith was tapped when he was president. He was a Republican, and he was there. I think Chair Smith did a decent job. I think there were times that I felt he punted a little bit, but he wasn't pushing an agenda. Nobody ever raised things. If I look at the past, they've had a lot of different chairs. When Obama was in office, it was David Vladeck. Chair Vladeck was aggressive. I mean, brought some cases. I never thought the commission would. They went through a spree of cases before AMG Capital Management where they just slew people, like slew people. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see who they put in and what they do, and it has been a pretty aggressive FTC. But for all of you who might be sitting back, drinking your pina colada, saying, "Let me go back to making my claims and putting the testimonials in my documents and getting on the phone and saying, what is your goal? Because no one's going to care anymore." That's not true. As a matter of fact, I tracked my case and spoke with Greg about this, and it was interesting to track back and realize that my case probably started getting looked into while Donald Trump was president the last time. So it wasn't one of those things. If you just track the timelines,
Probably.
there's a decent chance they were looking at me already. So it could
Also,
have actually been.
investigation versus asset freeze.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm just saying, investigation versus asset freeze.
Yeah. So my challenge over the last few weeks, I have really struggled, as we've spoken about, because we know a few people that have had to deal with these asset freezes. And so it's hit close to home in the sense of people I know. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm like friends with them, but I know them. And it has really, really been tough to digest how stripped of due process I feel they are. Regardless of my feelings towards them, positive or negative, regardless of what they were doing. In this country, if you are suspected of having murdered somebody, I mean, hell, you could have been found at the scene over the body with a knife in your hand with blood dripping off that knife. You still get due process. You still have a right to an attorney. You still get a proper trial. And it's like, but God forbid you're on the phone and you make some statements about building a business that they don't like. And it's like, asset freeze, go screw yourself, no lawyer, no nothing, good luck trying to feed your baby next week. Felt kind of, it hit home. It was like, wow, that shouldn't be the new norm. But good. All right. So you still have to worry about the FTC, everybody. I'm sorry to tell you, all the rules in this book are still, there's no edition number 2 coming out. What you can say isn't going to be a book of one page that says anything the hell you want. It's going to be the same rules apply. Lots of great things going on at our organization, by the way, that I didn't get a chance to start by talking about. The book continues to fly off the shelves, so thank you. Compliant Marketing Academy. I got to check. I think we're closing in on 200 members, if I'm not mistaken. And Complyly continues to do really well, so come join us in any of these environments. Complyly is now getting its 3rd engine awakening. And so the engine is being, there's another evolution of it coming, which I'm excited about. And Greg, you'll be excited about this, but the PDF feedback that you had as to how we display the violations found, not only will the PDF functionality be live here in about 7 to 10 days, but we decided to take that feedback and implement it even for the web interface. So even the web interface, the way it shows all the issues, is actually going to change over the next couple weeks. So the UI will get updated to be more useful. So lots of things happening here. And last but not least, you are soon going to be able to work with Greg, Guardian Law, and the entire organization to not only set up your entities correctly, but to help you get help in your taxes so that you're reducing what you have to pay legally, all completely on the up and up. But last but not least, Do you know how many risks of lawsuits are around you? Forget the FTC for a minute. I mean, your neighbor could sue you for something. Anyone can sue you. So we are officially at NAOAC announcing a partnership with Guardian Law very soon here, and you'll be able to book a call with us where we come in, we give you an initial strategy, tell you what you should do, and then Greg and his firm go and implement all of it. So you can get your trust set up, you can get all your estate planning and your asset protection and your tax planning and your entity creation and your entity structure. As a matter of fact, Greg and I are creating a plan right now that would give you the ability to have unlimited entities created while having Guardian Law represent all of that. It's a really cool plan, and it's an asset protection plan that, guess what, you don't have to pay annual fees on. So when there's annual tweaks to make to it, Greg's crazy. Guardian Law is insane. I don't know why they do this, but they say we'll just do it for you. We don't charge you those fees for it. I'm probably going to make them change that later, so grab it while you can. That's going live right now. Greg, you have a training with my team today, right? Our accounts teams.
Correct.
Yeah. So this is going to be fun. We're going to be announcing it soon. We have another challenge coming. That's right. I'm officially announcing it. We're doing challenge number 2. The first one was so successful, was so awesome. We learned a lot. We're going to make it a little bit better now. We're going to do one more challenge. That'll be the last big event of the year, and then we'll slide into January. So all the links are below. Go click everything. Go sign up for things. Buy stuff. I promise you, we're not making any money yet. Support the cause. Every penny we make, we invest right back into growing this business and supporting this mission. I am officially working on the outline of the next book. And in January, we'll be releasing a new course called The Compliant Testimonial System. You guys are going to love it. It's a freaking epic course. Greg, anything you want to add?
No.
All right. So everybody, for good or for bad, whether you support it or not, we will have a new chair soon. Will lead to some changes, but nothing too instrumental. Go out there, keep marketing, be compliant, be ethical, be honest, grab the book, join us in the academy. This is Onik reminding you, if you want to be a giant, go compliant, and when life pushes you, stand straight, smile, push it the heck back. We'll see you on the next one.